Hi, folks. Nothing like an Epsom salt bath to close a good day. Burn all my paper trash. I wanted to tell you a story that I had written a year ago plus on Facebook, and I didn't save it. I started to write it down. It's a fanciful story, but it was one that very much could happen. I'm not into fiction that is unrealistic. I'm into fiction that could definitely be a reality. So, in my crazy life, with ups and downs and dysfunctions and failures and strengths and weaknesses, I started writing installments on Facebook, living vicariously through what I never had. And I wrote The Voyage of the Maikeru. And this may not interest some. Many that get on YouTube, I've noticed there's all kinds. There's people that like content, and there's people that don't. So people that are into low-class stuff aren't going to be interested in this one. But I wrote this story because I have a lot within me. I have a heart as big as the ocean. That's why my name is Ocean Heart. That Epsom salt bath made me realize I miss the salty air. It does something to me. I grew up on the Pacific Ocean in Los Angeles. I was adopted at 4 months of age out of the city of Long Beach. So I wove a story involving myself as the character of Pacific and some people that I had named, some of them having names of people that were important in my life, and some people that I had real contact with, but the character is totally imagined by my brain. I live in Augusta, Georgia, and I've often wondered why. I had a friend named Robin Tate. She was a black woman in Denver. I met her on a field trip to the Nature and Science Museum, and I was attracted to her. She was older than me. I took an interest in her, and we started seeing each other. Unfortunately, she had some habits and vices that I was not into, but we continued to be friends. She lived on the other side of the metro, and I'd pick her up. We'd go to dinner, we'd hang out. And then we lost contact for about a year, and in the spring of 2019, she called me up, and she said, "Michael, I'm in Georgia." I said, "What? I thought you were in Aurora." "No, Michael, I moved. You ought to move out here." And a little backstory. I was taking care of the Woodworth family, now deceased. They had a property in Lakewood, and when I was married and my son was born in the world, we had been led to find a rental through a Christian couple at a church we were going to. because when our son was born, we could not stay in the historic downtown apartment building. They did not allow children. It had stairwell, elevator shaft, and they just did not allow kids. So they gave me and her at the time we needed to find a place, and the rent in Denver's outrageous, and I let the people at a big church we were going to know, and somebody said, we're moving to the south, and give this man and his wife our number, because we've lived in a really good place and it's Christian people. And we took the bus and went out there and talked to them. They were very different, eccentric, Jim and Ann, but they were very nice. And we ended up renting one half of the duplex they owned next door to their property, and did that for 5 years. And I didn't realize at the time, but God had his hand on me for all the ups and downs. And we can do this in Georgia. You can't do that in California. You can't do that in most liberal places. Some people do it right on the ground. I don't. I like it contained so it doesn't get out of control. I did a lot of tear out in this house, and I pretty much burned most of it in that barrel. And it has fertilized the yard. It's hard to imagine that everything that we build on this earth one day is going to be destroyed by fire. Every classic car, every building, everything man has erected, including the earth itself, and the heavens and the universe will dissolve with a fervent heat. And God's making a new heavens and a new earth. And even me, as I get smarter, I made a lot of mistakes. And we see a lot of people on the internet in our society. They just troll and they're nasty. People are nasty, but there's good souls out there. Let me make that clear. And as I get older, I realize we work so hard to get somewhere. And we often forget that one day we're going to die. We're going to leave this world. And then what? Then what? And I've always wanted my life to be greater than it is. I mean, I'm just an ordinary guy in Augusta, Georgia. Bought a wreck of a house, and I've been remodeling it, painstaking, blood, sweat, tears, and a few swear words. There were times when I yelled I should have just bulldozed this dang thing. And then God taught me a lesson. Robin was used by God to bring me here because Jim Woodworth had died of pancreatic cancer in 2016. And so I was taking care of the property, and his wife, she was hard to deal with. And now that I didn't have the buffer and the family didn't have the buffer of Jim, and opened up the full throttle meanness to all of us. And the family came together and said, if you continue to drive Michael out of here, we will move you into a nursing home and we will sell the property. Michael's presence is allowing you to have independent senior living, and nobody would do what he's doing. So stop pushing in on Michael. I made a trip in 2018 to the Philippines because I met a gal on Facebook. And it wasn't to be anything long-lasting, because I told her I just want to date and meet you and meet your family, and I need a trip. So I did. And it was the greatest trip I had in my life. And some of that is the backdrop to the story I'm about to tell you. But the real part of it is Robin, I had prayed. Ann was taking a turn for the worse. I had to make that call that nobody wants to make, and called her daughter in East Denver and said, Ann's health is getting worse, and she's not going to tell you that. And I'm letting you know that she's not getting out of the bed. She's laying there, and she's not making it to the bathroom, and I need to let you know because you guys are going to have to intervene. And a granddaughter and the granddaughter's friend came and tried to do this for 2 weeks. They were exhausting themselves. And I had to tell them both, How long are you guys going to do this? You have jobs, you have school. And they called the rest of the family, and a decision was made to put her in assisted care. And about that time, Robin called out of the blue and said, Michael, I moved to Georgia and you ought to move here. Houses are cheap. She told me the price of houses, and I was like, no way. So I started looking, and I was shocked. She was telling the truth. Anne ended up dying in September of 2019, but the family relieved me of my duties in August 4th, and I got up on a Sunday morning. I had loaded my truck the night before, and the sun came out from Boise, Idaho, and Sunday morning I was yeehaw. Drove all the way to Shawnee, Oklahoma, because I wanted nothing more than to get out of there and a bad past with a bad marriage and a very, very difficult relationship with my son and I. 2020 came, and as you know, COVID hit, the riots hit, and I watched the American world turn upside down. BLM accusations that whites are to blame for just about all of the evils in the world. And I began to realize something's going on, man. And so I set about to write a story. Robin Tate has passed away. She unfortunately smoked so hard. She had called me 2 weeks before she left the world. And when she was talking to me, it clearly sounded like she had fluid in her lungs. And I thought, my gosh, she sounds so bad. And unfortunately, I wasn't to know about her passing until somebody from Denver on Facebook said, did you know Robin died? I said, get out. No. Somebody who works here is connected to somebody who's connected to her and said she passed away. I said, oh my gosh. And I stopped and paused a minute. Robin was very nice, but she was bound up in her mind and bound up in her politics. And I said, you better quit that smoking. That cigarette will put you in the grave. And I remember her saying, that may be, Michael, but I like my cigarettes, I like my wine, and I like my scratch cards. I only need to look at myself to realize our habits are very hard to break, aren't they? So my life is not a dream come true. It never was. I was treated like I was a bother by the family who adopted me. Oh, there were relatives that loved me and showered their blessing on me. But I wasn't ever privileged. And I like looking at this. This gives me perspective. Everything we do can be destroyed so fast. 1985, I got saved. I wish I could say it was perfect. I wish I could say that I was this godly, perfect Christian, and I never cussed, and I never had sex, and I never did this, and I'd be lying. But I believe that Bible. God has rooted that in me. No atheist, no professor, no college, no pseudo-science class can convince me that evolution is true and that God doesn't exist. I've seen his hand in my life. So, with that, I'll start to spin to you a tale of my own making. Somewhere in a land far away, a young lady, 30 years old, on a moonlit night, hot, sultry, moonlit Southeast Asian night, had fallen into a deep sleep in her bedroom. Anna was sound asleep, and she was suddenly awoken by something. She didn't know what it was. She fell back asleep. This time, she had a dream, and the dream really troubled her. She broke out into a heavy sweat. She tossed and turned. She started even talking, no, no. And she couldn't believe the dream that she had. Her parents hurt her. Luna said to Luis, what is going on with Anna? I don't know, maybe she's having a nightmare. Should we check on her? They both spoke in Tagalog to each other. No, she's having a problem. She'll come tell us. And the noise in the other room went away, but Anna sat up in her bed, started crying. She was exhausted and she was dripping with sweat. She went over to the bathroom with the low faucet, took the water and slapped it up on her face, turned on the light, looked at her bedraggled, sweaty hair in the mirror and thought, I look like a fright. Her father heard her and said, are you okay, daughter? No, I'm not. I know you're going to think I'm strange, but I had a horrible dream. And yet it was beautiful at the same time. Father, there's a storm coming. And it's never been one like it in the history of the ocean. There's a storm coming. And it's going to be really bad. All the ships are going to sink. It's going to do damage to this side of the Philippines coast. It's going to hit the western coast of the United States, Hawaii. But there's one man who's going to survive all that. And all I know is he has long hair. And he's called the Man of the Sea. And the father knew that his daughter was a rational woman. For a Filipina, she was incredibly intellectual. She wasn't like the native girls. She read, she studied things. She knew the Bible. She said, oh, Father, I hope you don't think I'm crazy. He put her arm and he said, I never have. You've never exhibited that. Your mother and I know that you're of a sound mind. Do you know when this is going to happen? No date was given, except to say, in a couple of months. Father, you need to tell the mayor. We might want to get everybody to stay away from the sound, the beach, because we don't know when it's coming, and all the kids like to swim in there, and we might want to keep them away from the sea. I'll do that, Anna. Everybody went back to sleep, and she fell into a sound sleep. She didn't forget the dream. Meanwhile, thousands of miles to the east of her, a man had approached his secretary in San Diego and asked her, could you please put an ad in the San Diego Boat Trader for this boat? Why are you selling it? I have no use for it. Every time I try to take it out, somebody gets hurt. It's a beautiful boat. That's why I bought it. It's very old and it's beautiful. It's well maintained. I had it gone through. It's got a fresh water tank. The diesel engine's been overhauled for the auto steer and the propeller to get it out of dock. The sails have been renewed with unrippable thick fabric, and all the brass and copper's been polished. Wait a minute, boss, you're asking $3,000 for this? It's a 70-foot historic yacht. Secretary, I'm rich. I have no need of it. I just want to get rid of it. And the secretary had an attitude. She was busy. She felt overloaded. She said, fine, I'll do it. And out of some mean spite within herself, she surfed the internet and she said, oh, I'm going to put it up for an advertisement. And I'm going to put it in a place where it'll never sell. And she advertised it in some publication in Georgia. just out of spite. And the description, any local would see and go, what? Who's going to buy this? She did it. Boss forgot about it. And life went on. Pacific had moved to Georgia in 2019 and had struggled with the culture. He bought his house, paid cash for it, worked on it. COVID came, COVID went. He didn't care for the culture. He was a minority. And being the United States had a black eye with the history of slavery and racism, Pacific found out real quick that he would always be looked at by a certain percentage of the people as if though he was part of the deep South culture that had persecuted that race. And Pacific struggled with that. He started to get angry. He would tell people, I had nothing to do with that. Why are you taking it out on all of us? He worked on his house. He hadn't dated in years. And he made a decision. I'm going to get done with this house. I'm going to look for somewhere else to go. And as happenstance or providence or whatsoever you choose to believe in, Pacific would come to realize that the hand of God not only brought him to Georgia, but the hand of God was about to lead him out. And Pacific had no idea that the decision he was about to make was going to become the news story around the globe. And he decided one day to take a little road trip. He hadn't done that. He had gone downtown, shot pool, tried to dance. The music wasn't the music he was used to. He didn't like it. He started going to work, going home. Drove to this little town, stopped at a little diner, decided to eat a greasy spoon, and the entrance to the restaurant, there was a little book rack with periodicals that said free. And he saw something, Georgia used a new cell. He picked it up and he said, what is this? Ate his meal and he thumbed through it and he happened to fall upon an ad. 1931, 70-foot yacht. Teakwood, mahogany, classic lines, brass and copper fittings. Wow, this thing is beautiful. Pacific looked at the pictures. $3,000. San Diego, what is this doing in Georgia? This is too big for any Georgia lakes. You can't. You'd have to have this hauled in on a lowboy semi-truck. And he felt it. And it was so strong, it was like a tsunami. Buy it. Buy it. What am I going to go? You call that number. You call that guy and you buy that boat and get on it and go. He went out to his truck. He thought about it, drove home. And he started to call the guy. He said, this is foolishness. I've never sailed a boat in my life. I can't handle something like this. What am I going to do with this? And he called the man and he said, yes, my name is Pacific and I saw your ad and I'm in Georgia and I want the boat. Georgia? How did you see the ad in Georgia? Oh, I was in a small town. I ate at a diner and they had a free little magazine periodical rack at the front of the restaurant. And I saw things sitting in there and Georgia buy, sell, trade, used and new or something. And what's a yacht doing in here? Pacific, have you ever sailed? No, sir. You know that this is old, right? I recognized it right away, sir. I love antiques. I love ocean liners. You ever heard of the Queen Mary? Queen Mary, yes. We used to have our conventions. We'd go over there and have some of our after convention activities on it. I said, yeah, I've been on it a few times. So you appreciate old Nautica stuff? Yes. Where do you live? I'm in Augusta. I need to put my house for sale, but I will pay you cash for the boat. I have it. Can you hold it for me? You know, yes, I can. I actually have it in a warehouse. It's up in a cradle. Um, yeah, I bought the boat, Pacific. It's beautiful. It's stunning. They don't make boats like that. They're all fiberglass, and I never really got to fully enjoy it. You know, we'd go out. So my wife fell off of it and got hurt. We were trying to dock it, and somebody slipped and got his foot crushed between it and the deck or the dock, and just bad things kept happening. And I just said, you know what? I don't know what's going on, but maybe maritime is not in the cards for me. So I thought I'd put it up for sale. She's a beautiful boat. The telemotor works. The has a toilet in there that's really nice. If you're in heavy seas, it doesn't slop. It's got the minute you pull the handle, the door shuts and seals it off. It's got a freshwater, several 100-gallon water tank that's galvanized metal that's been all purified, and cleaned out. And it's got some interesting things on it. If you're in heavy seas and you get sick, it's literally got a thing built into one of the berths where you can flip a manual switch and a little disc opens and you can throw up in the tube and click it back shut. I said, really? Yeah, I know nothing about it. I had bought it. The guy didn't know much about it. And he didn't want it. Are you sure it's only $3,000? Yeah. But what I want to know is how it got in Georgia. I told the secretary to put it in the San Diego, boat trader. Well, sir, I'm glad you didn't do it because I'm buying it. I need to put my house up for sale, wrap up some things. Wow. What are your intentions? Well, I'm going to buy it from you, look it over, and I'm going to put provisions on it. I'm going to go for a sale. You ever sailed, Civic? No, I haven't. You sure you know what you're doing? No, sir, I don't. But we're going to find out real quick, aren't we? I want the boat. If you want, I'll send you a check now to hold it. No, I'm good. I trust you. Something in your voice tells me this was earmarked for you. Yeah, I believe that too. So Pacific put up his house for sale, and remarkably, it sold very fast. He didn't tell anybody what he was doing. In fact, he didn't tell anybody anything. He sold off most of his things, took a few things that mattered, put a little topper on his truck, and fled out of town. As he drove across the country, he said, what am I doing? I'm too old for this crap. You can't just sell your house, go buy a boat, and take a joyride. What are you going to do? And he was filled with anxiety, apprehension, and yet at the same time, he just felt God saying, continue with the task. Go to San Diego. Pacific showed up, called the gentleman. Well, I sold it. I'm here. Let me know when you want to meet. Just so happens I'm on my lunch. Where are you? I'm outside La Jolla. Do you know where the marina is? As a matter of fact, I do. Why don't you drive down there? I'll meet you at, say, 1:30. I can do that. I'll take you to one of my warehouses down there. And Pacific met the man. Suit, tie, corporate all the way. And the man was a little taken aback when he saw Pacific with hair down to his waist and a big metal chain around his neck. Said, well, you know, I must say, I've lived in California and I've seen everything, but this is a rather interesting look. Yes, sir. I get that a lot. I actually grew up out here. I was adopted out of Long Beach. Really? Yeah. That's how I know about the Queen Mary. Well, let me show you the boat. You might have second thoughts, but let's go check her out. We went in a regular door into this huge warehouse. All kinds of things in there. Some old aircraft, odds and ends, stuff that Pacific had never seen. And then he snapped on a light, and there she was. The minute Pacific saw her up in the cradle holding her up, she had a keel, an extended keel that dropped down. Wow. This thing's got the weight ballast on the bottom of it. I like that. Man said, Pacific, this thing, strangely enough, is made for deep sea ocean crossings. This isn't the kind of a yacht. When people think of a yacht, this thing is for literally going. That's all I know. He said, I had a nautical friend of mine looked at it and he said, this yacht was custom made. This thing was custom made. I don't even know the history on this, but that dorsal underneath it, that means this thing can take some serious ocean. What Pacific did not know at that moment was it would be put to the test when he got in it. Sir, I want it. Here's the money cash. What are you going to do with that old pickup of yours? Now, I'm going to get rid of it. I'll tell you what, keep your money. I got a son. He's a bit of a spoiled brat. And he wants a really nice car and all that. And he's not ready for that. I'm going to give him that truck and I want to teach him humility. Maybe he and I can work on it together or something. He said, it runs good. Yeah, it ran great. Just a weak 6-cylinder. So just like that, I signed the title. He signed the title of the boat. Pacific said, I have one more favor to ask of you, sir. Now go ahead. What is that? Is it too much trouble for you to bring this to Long Beach and tether up by the Queen Mary? I want to start my voyage with the Queen Mary shadowing over me. Interesting. I can do that. I'll have her put in the water and I'll do it myself. I'll have my friend come along so that nobody gets hurt. When do you want to do it? The sooner the better. I feel a strong itching to get out to sea. The man did not know Pacific at all, but he sensed something. He couldn't put his finger on it. But as he stood there looking at this very unusual man with very long flowing red mane of hair and a chain, he just thought, this guy is not like anything I've ever met. And there's a rock solidness about this guy. I'm really curious how this is going to end up. I can have it there by Friday. Perfect. Let's do it. If I could use the truck, we'll do the trade up there. I need to get stuff and food. And he said, I'll tell you what, you can do that now because we have the cranes to lift it. I can't imagine you're going to put a bunch of dead weight on here. You can stock it up now and we'll get it up there, and all you got to do is you get out of the truck, my buddy and I will get in the truck, and you take the boat. Sir, I like doing business with you. The day came. The man brought the boat, tethered it up. Of course, city officials came down and said, you guys can't dock here. And the corporate man had some big connections. He said, well, I'll tell you what. You know who I am, right? This guy's going to be sailing tomorrow, but he's asked permission. He wants to leave because he's an ocean liner aficionado, and he wanted to leave with the Queen Mary overlooking his boat. This young man is going to be taking a historic voyage. City officials said, very well then, as long as he's out by tomorrow, we should see no problem with it. Civic spent the night on the boat, made out his bed, put everything in its place, stowed all his clothing, checked everything, looked everything over, familiarized himself with it, practiced raising and putting down sails. And when he was content that he was familiar with the Maikeru, he turned out the light and went to bed. He woke up the next morning, day dawned bright and clear. And what he didn't realize is the guy that sold him the boat, he and his friend asked him, what time are you looking at departure? Probably about 8 o'clock. They hung around. They wanted to see him off. They took video, pictures. And as the Queen Mary opened up for another day of tourist traffic, nobody really knew what was going on. People up on the bow of the Queen Mary looked down and said, wow, that's a cool old yacht. Well, Pacific, the best to you. I'm sure you know the sea is nothing to play with. All I did was putter around in the harbor and little of this and that, but you say you want to sail across the Pacific. Wow. I hope it all works out for you. Pacific looked at him with seriousness in his eyes and said, I'm about to find out, sir. So do I. Thank you. She's a beautiful boat. I don't want to let her down or you. I hope this boat will be home for me for many years. Two men stood there, smiled and somewhat awestruck, but also a sense of foreboding hit them. Boy, I hope this isn't another horror story. They watched him raise the sails, turn on the little diesel engine, portaged out, a little breeze hit it, turned off the engine, and he heard the sails snap, and he was off. They watched until it disappeared. Pacific manned the jib, and he did some practice maneuvers. He turned the wheel, turned it. He wanted to do arcs. He wanted to get used to the feel of a 70-foot yacht. He did circles. He slammed it hard over to the port, hard over to starboard. Practiced And one thing stood out to him. Wow, this thing handles beautifully, like she's supposed to. And as soon as he gave himself a little schooling, it was as if though the hand of God came right out of the heavens. The sails went taut, and she was off, full speed ahead. And what was going on at that moment, every mariner out on the high seas, on the Pacific, that day, noticed it the same time Pacific did. The winds usually blow from the east to the west, but they are blowing strongly. From the east. What's going on? Fishing boats, sailors, all up and down the American coast. Sailors out in the middle of the Pacific made contact with other ships that were heading east. I am bucking a headwind. We don't ever buck headwinds going this way. Pacific said out loud the Irish proverb, "May the wind always be at your back." And it was. And Pacific got used to the boat. The days flew by. It didn't take them long for the Queen Mary and the city of Long Beach and the shoreline of California to disappear completely out of sight. And as he got used to the boat, he set the course, notched the steering wheel so it would just self-steer in a certain direction. And he walked the boat, and he turned and said, "Well, I've done it now. I have nothing to fall back on. No land, no help, nothing." The Maikeru was equipped with a very powerful radio that could transmit as well as receive. He would find that it came in extremely useful. It could pick up the BBC marine broadcast. It could pick up ship traffic, everything. The Maikeru had marine battery that would power the telemotor, which was a device for the purposes of the Maikeru, that when the boat was in heavy seas, it would always correct the rudder to steer towards the waves and not turn broadside. And it was just little electrical impulses to constantly redirect the rudder. When the battery would get low, the diesel engine would kick on and run just enough to charge it and cut out. It was a very efficient system. Pacific started getting eased into the nautical sailor life, and as the days flew by, he was enjoying every minute of it. One morning he saw dolphins leaping out of the water, squealing and clicking, and flying fish. He saw giant sea turtles. It was beautiful. Everything was going well. And as the days flew by, he neared the coast of one of the Hawaiian Islands. And he noticed a ship in the distance. And as he got closer, it appeared the ship was heading his way. And strangely enough, as the two were starting to head towards each other, the wind just literally quit. Pacific trimmed the sails. The ship slowed down. He saw it was a Coast Guard vessel. And the Coast Guard vessel pulled alongside. Men were yelling with the bullhorn, "Is everything okay?" "Yes, everything's fine. We're just checking. We're used to scouting out the coast of the island here, and You have a very unique boat. Our men with binoculars were watching it. That's an old classic right there. 1931. I bought her in San Diego. Where are you headed? Well, first time out, I'm headed to the Philippines. My name's Pacific. The crew started gathering on the deck, coming off of the bridge. Have you ever sailed before? No. He described the boat to the Coast Guard crew, chatted with them a minute. And one of the ladies came out and a guy and said, "Hey, we don't normally do this, but we were watching you. You were really bucketing along and strangely the breeze stopped." Pacific smiled and said, "Obviously to get us to meet." They handed him some bananas, some papayas, and some fresh fruit. He said, "I'm sure you would appreciate these." And Pacific said, "Oh, and how. Thank you." They even threw him a Coast Guard life preserver and said, "Don't tell anybody, but here's a souvenir of our meeting." Pacific was honored. "Thank you, you guys. It's nice to meet you." And as the wind stiffened and picked up again, Pacific gave a bow of curtsy. They nodded, waved, and off they went. The wind continued to carry Pacific in record fashion. One morning, over a week out from Hawaii, heading due west, he was down below. He'd woke up, made some breakfast, started to come up top, and he noticed, I'm not moving. Opened the hatch, came up. The ocean was like a mirror. Not a ripple, not a sound. The bell wasn't ringing. The sails hung limp. And it was as if though the Almighty nudged Pacific. And Pacific said out loud, "Oh boy, I should have known this was going to happen." He brought down the sails. The Maikeru had a unique system. The sails were so big that a man could not hoist or play with them. Everything was pulleys, hardware that did not break, jibs. And he popped 2 clamps on either end of a huge tube. He'd bring the sails down and they would tuck down into the tube and it would coil up. He'd close the clamps, lock it, secure it with chains on either end. The mast also had a pulley. It had anchors that you popped open and secured, and he brought it down, lashed everything together. In the event the Maikeru was in heavy seas, you brought these things down, they wouldn't snap, they wouldn't break, they wouldn't be taken off the deck of the ship. He removed the bell. He took it down below, secured it in a cabinet where it was secured and padded. And as he just finished up, he saw a black curtain as night on the horizon, bolts of lightning. The sea was still as glass. And he stood there and he looked and he said, "Lord God, I know there's going to be trials in my life. You've taught me that. But this time, I'm out here and it's just me and you. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, God, there's no contest. There's no contest. You win. I'm at your mercy. Please be merciful to me, O God. And as he felt the first breeze, he knew something foul was coming. There were two hatches. There was the well deck where you sat down and held the steering wheel. He removed the steering wheel from its place, stowed it below in its cabinet, and he pulled that hatch shut, worm gear driven, and it secured it with seals. No water could get in, no ocean could tear it open. And the hatch below on the bottom of the well deck, same thing. So you had a double hatch system. The Maikeru had a way to get oxygen where the sea could not come in. It had vents that prevented seawater from the heaviest of seas from coming in. Pacific shut the hatches, went down below, read his Bible, and prayed. And only after he got done, the inside of the Maikeru turned black as night. He felt the Maikeru start to move. The Maikeru was well built. It didn't creak, it didn't groan, but he felt it. And it wasn't long before all hell broke loose. Things got so unsettled, he crawled up into his berth. And there were straps that could anchor from the wall to the edge of the rail on the bed and keep him from being tossed out of his bunk. He secured himself in. And he put himself in a fetal position and said, God, it's you and me now. Pacific thought he was going to die. He didn't know if it was day. He didn't know if it was night. He broke out in a cold sweat. And he thought, is this what it's like to die at sea? The Maikeru was severely buffeted. Strangely enough, she never went over. She never went upside down. She never capsized. But make no mistake about it. The pitching and rolling was so violent that if Pacific even tried to release the straps, he'd have been thrown and had a head injury and that would have been lights out. He was stuck in his berth. This went on for 2 weeks. Several times, he was able to pull himself over to the tube, flip the switch, and dry heave into it. Also had another little interesting feature on the wall. Had a separate tank with fresh water. And there was a tube that he could slide in and out of the wall and suck fresh water, which was nice because that was the only diet he would have for 2 weeks, and it was only little sips to keep himself from hurling. Day turned into night, night turned into day. It was all the same. Pacific never saw any light until one evening. He thought he saw lights blazing in the few portholes And what is that? And all he could hear was the water crashing over the blast wind, and the light shined into the Maikeru and the moving and the tilting of the Maikeru violently. He had a porthole right by his berth, and he pressed his face as best he could to try to see. Is that a ship? And just like that, the lights were gone. It was a ship, all right. It was a Mars container ship, broken in half by 100-foot waves. Both ends went straight to the bottom and just missed hitting the Maikeru. Pacific cried. He soaked his bed with the tears of anguish. God, if you want to kill me, just get it over with. This is too much. I know you're mad at me for the sins I've done. I know that you're angry. Pacific had a wrong view. He'd always believed, because of his abusive family, that God was always against him. Little did he realize that he was in the very hand of God when every mariner on that ocean was sent to Davy Jones' locker within the first day. Pacific had no idea what was coming, and God was humbling him and trying him and testing him and reminding him that even in the midst of the gates of hell rising up from the bottom of the sea, he was in the hand of the Almighty God. Meanwhile, back in Casiguran, Philippines, Luis had approached the mayor, said, I need to talk to you. And the mayor respected Luis. Luis was somewhat of a respected figure in the village. Anna's family, Luis, Mother Luna, her brother Lupe, were respected. They didn't live down in the village. They lived at the start of the foothill of a very steep mountain. A Spanish galleon had sunk hundreds of years before. It had hit a rock right off the coast. And the Spanish, before the ship was set fire and sent to the bottom, it got stuck on a rock. They transferred a huge cache of gold and treasures up on that mountain, well above Luis and Luna's home, made of bamboo, solid, stout, but simple house. Nobody had ever found it, and then it just became tall tales. But Luis knew it was up there. Luis had found something one day when he was trekking around that he only told his daughter and his wife about and Lupe, and they kept it hush-hush. The day finally came when the Maikeru finally stopped rocking. And Pacific, he literally would bicycle his legs as much as he could under the straps and move his arms so that he wouldn't atrophy, being tossed and everything. He thought, my gosh, I've got to move my body or muscles are going to relax and I won't be able to get up. The sunlight, or the light, streamed in the portholes. Pacific slowly reached and loosened the straps, put them back in their place, and slowly swung up. It took him a minute. He sat up on the edge of the bed, and he put his foot down. His leg almost gave out, and he thought, okay, we got to work this back up. Took a good hour before he took his steps. Looked out the porthole. Not a cloud in the sky. He grabbed the handrail, went up the steep steps, and slowly undid the worm gear. Opened hatch number 1, opened hatch number 2, and came on deck. He stood on deck. He grabbed the pedestal of the wheel, and he wept. God, you saved me. Why did you save me? Why did you not take me? Why did you allow me to survive something like this? He looked at the deck of the Maikeru. There was no damage. Slowly, he went down. He checked the cupboards. Everything was solid. Tried to sit on the toilet. Nothing would come out. He said out loud, "Oh yeah, I'm sure I'm constipated." He opened up a tin of sardines. He thought that'll clean the pipes. Had some kippered snacks. Had some almonds. Came up and put the wheel back on. Opened up the jib and the boom. Raised the sails. He was amazed. Nothing was bent. Nothing was damaged. Put the bell in place. And just after he got that done, the sun was so bright. He was not used to seeing light for 2 weeks, and it hurt his eyes to look anywhere near the sky. And he heard a plane. Wow, an airplane. That airplane was from Japan. It was a weather plane. It had left Japan when the storm broke. The guys had done a mission. The news had broke out around the globe about the tyranny that was playing out on the Pacific Ocean. Mariners around the globe were shocked at what they called the greatest maritime disaster in the history of humankind. Every ship, every sailing vessel, every fishing vessel, every cruise ship that was out on the Pacific, out at sea, was gone. No one could arrive at a death toll. The damage to the shorelines of islands, Guam, Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands, the Japanese were out checking now that the storm had cleared to see if they could see anything on the ocean, anything in distress. The captain in Japanese looked at his co-pilot and said, "What in God's name is that doing down there?" And as they circled to get lower, they were shocked to see the sailboat and a man with long, long mane of red hair standing up there waving at them. The plane was equipped with zoom cameras. They zoomed in, saw him, and said, "He's smiling." They both knew he was a long ways from land. And excitedly in Japanese, "How did this man make it? He didn't just come out here, he's been out here. The storm only cleared yesterday." They were talking excitedly. And then they zoomed in and caught the brass nameplate on the boat both in English and Japanese, Maikeru. The one said, Maikeru? That's Japanese. But that's not Japanese. That looks like a Westerner. They took video. They snapped still shots. Their plane could also transmit to the Chinese mainland. They had men in other parts of the plane operating computers. And this message was sent to Tokyo immediately. What appears to be an American man has survived the worst maritime disaster on what appears to be a 70-foot sailboat, both in English and Chinese, on the brass nameplate on the bow of the ship, the Maikeru. This is unbelievable. And they sent back video clips. Tokyo News put it out there. It hit Manila. It hit Paris. It hit every major city around the globe, literally within the space of an hour. Pacific didn't know any of this. He waved and he smiled, and the plane dipped its wings to say, "Got you," and flew off. Pacific was happy to see the plane, but he was more happy than anything that he had survived. He basked in the beautiful sunlight. The breeze began to pick up, and he resumed course. But he did take a sextant position, held the old ancient brass thing, looked at it, went down, looked at his charts. He was shocked at where he had ended up. The ocean had continued to push him on a westbound crossing, but he had missed his original target of Guam by a long margin. And he looked. And he saw on the charts the Philippine coastline with a leg or peninsula came down. Cape de Alfonso. And on the other side of that was a deep bay that went up to the north. And Pacific had known with a storm like this, the coastlines everywhere are going to be battered and severely damaged. He also knew that the east coast of the Philippines was, if habited at all, was extremely desolate. He decided he would go around Cape Ildefonso and go up into the Sound of Casiguran. He didn't know if there'd be people, but he thought, I'm going to get off sea, I'm going to rest. When the Japanese broadcast had beamed around the world, the news came to the village in Casiguran. Luis, Luna, Anna, and Lupe were huddled around the small TV when Manila told the story. Anna stood up and wept. That's him! That's the one in my dreams! He made it! Oh my gosh! And all the experts were trying to analyze, where was he going? The Japanese were very astute in their observations. It appears that he's heading towards Cape Ildefonso. He's probably thinking he can't land on the coast due to damage, but he's going to come into a sound where it's been protected. Luis smiled and said, I'm proud of you, daughter. God spoke to you. We need to go meet that man. It looks like he's coming this way. He can stay in our home. Anna, let's go down. I want the villagers to get the boats ready. We're going to go give this man a welcome that he'll never forget. As the days went by and Pacific got closer to the coast of the Philippines and navigated around Cape Ildefonso, he could see the damage on the shoreline. Debris, trees, erosion. And when he came around Cape Ildefonso, he had gotten just a few miles up there and he saw something. Like, what is that? And it was a huge Maersk container ship, half sunk, almost blocking the sound. The captain, when the storm had hit, had got thrown off course, and he had tried to make a mad dash up in there. He had been heavily damaged, and he was able to turn just into the sound, but the ship had taken on water and it cracked and settled the bottom, and it wasn't deep enough for the ship to sink all the way up to the bridge. People had gone down below out of fear, and the ship sank quickly and they all drowned. Nobody survived. As Pacific steered, he saw a big, giant bronze propeller with the blade sticking up as the whole thing was leaning over, and he thought, my gosh. He navigated around it, continued on. And he looked ahead and he saw a flotilla of boats headed straight towards him. And he thought to himself, I hope this isn't like Gilligan's Island with the savages. They were smiling. The natives were smiling and yelling in Tagalog. He thought, well, I don't know what they're saying, but they're not hostile. And he waved. And one boat pulled up close to the rail of the Maikeru, and a beautiful long-haired, black-haired woman said, Man of the sea, is that you? Pacific laughed, and I said, yeah, I guess I am the man of the sea, huh? I request permission to board, sir. Pacific walked over the rail, offered his hand, and helped her step over the rail and said, of course. Pacific, I heard the news broadcast. I had a dream 2 months ago, and you were in it. My dad told the mayor. Because of that dream, we prepared the villagers. Everybody moved away from the sound. But in that dream, you were in it. I don't know who you are, but that boat and you and that hair, you were in it. And you survived this, and God had told me. Pacific was humbled. He said, wow, he spoke to you. God spoke to you. Anna smiled. You know him too? Of course. What is your name? It's Anna. Anna, how could I survive that? Do you know what happened out there? I don't know what happened out there, but I know what happened in my dream, and it was ugly. She said, what is that over there? I said, it's a container ship, and it's sunk. Wow, we never get big ships. I said, I don't think that it was trying to come here. I think the storm sent it off course, and the captain might have tried to make a run for shallow waters. Pacific, I'm going to sail in with you. and we've got a place for you to tie up. My family and me have welcomed you into our home. You can shower. We will feed you. You have a bed to sleep in, but please stay in our home. Pacific wept and he said, thank you. I will not say no. Things happen so fast. The Filipinos were happy as he tied up the Maikeru. Anna said, don't worry. The villagers will not mess with this. We've already talked. Anybody who survives that, don't touch him. Don't touch a man like that. Obviously, God is with him. Pacific looked at Anna and said, I actually thought that God was going to do me in once and for all. And he hasn't. I clearly see that he has a reason for me surviving. I don't know what it is, but I think I'm about to find out. Anna said, bring your wash. Bring your wash. I'll wash your clothes. She helped him secure and tidy up the Maikeru, shut the hatch, pull down the sails. When Pacific stood on land, he stopped and faced the Filipinos and said, thank you. God bless you. Thank you for coming to meet me. I don't know you, but you're beautiful people, and this is a sight for sore eyes. They bowed. No, sir. You are the one. Any man that can survive what happened out there, that's a man. Welcome to our humble village. We hope you like it. You are staying with one of the best families. Nobody will bother your boat. If they do, they have to go through us. Thank you. Pacific bowed. Lupe had gotten a tricycle and said, Anna, Pacific, get in. I'll give you a ride. They were whisked up the narrow dirt road through the jungle up to Luis and Luna's house. Luna was waiting. She smiled broadly as Anna and Pacific came walking up to the house. Welcome. Welcome, sir. We are honored to have you. Anna's dreamt about you, and we know Anna to be good. And when she told us the dream, we knew that she wasn't making up something. But to see this happening is beyond anything we can explain to words. Ma'am, I'm honored to be here. What a beautiful home. Really? You like our humble Ma'am, right now, being on land, seeing your faces is heaven. I am so glad to be standing here. Come in. Our place is humble, but you can wash up. We got some clothing that might fit you. We're going to make for you a Philippine feast. Thank you, I would be honored. I could really use some mangoes. They laugh. Mango? Wow, you in the ocean so long you want mango? Well, we have that, but we're going to fix you chicken and fish too. Yes, I just want a mango for the sweetness. I ran out of fruit halfway across. Major networks in Manila covered the story. The Pacific had completed his voyage and was received warmly in Kasiguran. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, a husband and wife were watching the news. A very serious Japanese businessman, multimillionaire, and his wife had inherited a massive estate with cherry blossom trees, manicured grounds, koi fish ponds with little pathways to islands with gazebos. Very wealthy. They were watching the broadcast that showed the footage of Pacific out on the boat, out on the Pacific Ocean. And as the camera zeroed in on the nameplate, the wife grabbed her face. "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me." And she wept. "That's our boat. That's it." Her husband said, How can you be sure that's it? It long ago disappeared. How can you be sure that's it? There's no way. There's no way. That boat lasted all those years and then to survive that? There's no way. The lady's past relative, his name was Maikeru. He had gone to Sweden in 1931 to pick up a special order yacht that he had custom designed for himself by a Swedish boat builder called the Maikeru. Yep, the boat had come home. The Prime Minister of Japan, people in Japan were excited. The lady called the media and said, "I have a story I want to tell you. We want to meet that man. You've got to meet Pacific. You've got to invite that man." And the story also came out of the Hawaiian Coast Guard, beamed their story and said, "Yes, we saw him. He came on this date. We have video." They aired the video and the pictures, showed the video of them handing me the fruit. And the world was astounded. People from corporate America, people from all across the world are standing there befuddled. How is it this long-haired guy that had never sailed, had survived all of that, and that boat, a beautifully crafted boat, survived all that? The minister got on the news and had an English translator. "Pacific, if you can hear us, we are welcoming you to come to Tokyo. We want to meet you, and we will give you a very handsome price for that boat. That boat has a very special place in our heritage." Pacific hadn't gotten the message yet, and when he eventually did, he would not sell the boat. That boat would go on to be sailed around the globe by Anna, Pacific, and several women, Japan, Taiwan, as well as the west coast of Luzon. And they would create a voyage and have story upon story of heroic and adventurous deeds that rival any Indiana Jones in Hollywood could make up anytime, anyhow. After Pacific freshened up, he sat down to the best dinner he had had in his life. He held up a glass full of coconut juice and he said, a toast to all of you for your kindness and your love and your acceptance. To God be praised that he saved me. To God be praised that I got to live and stand here in this beautiful village with this beautiful family. Thank you, family. I feel like I've come home. I want to stay here. I want to make this place my home. And he would. Pacific and the ladies built a rather interesting house a mile up behind their house at the top of the mountain. They would go on to locate the Spanish galleon's treasure. Every one of those women and Pacific would become billionaires each, just on finding the treasure, bringing it to Manila to a bank where the Spanish authorities paid them all handsomely for the return of all these treasures. Pacific and the ladies became the richest people in the world over Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and all of Google and YouTube and Facebook combined. They found the Ark of the Covenant deep in Israel. They were used on many, 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 many mighty adventures that are stuff legends and stories are made of. Pacific would fall in love with a young lady named Edith, who loved the ocean and loved navigation. And every one of the women learned to sail the Maikeru and raise sails and chart the course. And they spent a lot of their life chasing down adventure from the deck of a ship. Or deck of a yacht, excuse me. That's just one installment of the Maikeru. The boat builders in Sweden, Ann and I, when we finally got news, and we got adjusted and calmed down to being on terra firma, I did, we were invited by ambassadors to come to Tokyo. And something happened in Tokyo where there was some sort of a protest that had nothing to do with us. And while we were out at sea, we got a transmission from the Coast Guard of Japan. Maikeru, we are asking you to divert to Kobe. There's been some problems in Tokyo, and you will be received there by city officials. Pacific changed his course to Kobe. Anna had never been out at sea, and she was enjoying every aspect of this voyage. Pacific was so happy to have a beautiful woman talking to him. He taught her how to hold the wheel, how to steer. They talked about their lives and their separate cultures and world. Anna had great respect for Pacific, and he got great respect. They would lay in the same bed together, but they didn't touch each other physically in the wrong way at all. They knew that God had his hand on them. When they sailed into Kobe, they were met with a hearty welcome from Japanese curious onlookers, specifically about the Maikeru and the man who had survived the greatest storm in the history of maritime. And they were directed where they could tether up the ship. And they kept the crowds at bay. One man came down, suit and tie. Pacific thought he was from America. And a Japanese lady that was breathtaking. And the man said, "I'm from Sweden." Told him his name, it was a Swedish name. My company built this boat in 1931. And because of what you went through, With your permission, we're going to pull it out of the water. We're going to check everything. We're going to add a couple things for your benefit. We're going to give you a GPS. We're also going to change out the radio where you can call anywhere in the world from satellite, receive internet, and be able to know exactly where you are without having to look at charts again. Pacific said, well, I'm not going to fight you on that. They shook hands. He said, when I heard the news of your story, I have nothing but awe and respect for you. I don't know who you are, sir, but obviously the universe is on your side. Pacific turned around and said, no, sir, not the universe, God Almighty. Don't ever forget that. Well, I don't believe in God, but I'll respect you. We also want to use you for endorsements. And I can tell by looking at you, you're not interested in wearing advertisements. But if we may, we're going to use your story. We're going to use your boat. Our company has already had thousands of orders for boats built like this. We stopped building boats like that. We do fiberglass. He said, we've had to start ordering wood and brass. Pacific, these boats are going to be very high dollar, but people want them. Because of what happened to you, people want a piece of Maikeru history. Congratulations, Pacific. And to you, beautiful lady. We'll pull it up out of the water. We'll check it over. We'll sound the hull. We'll do everything while you're visiting. And then when you're ready to go, we'll lower her back in the water. Yes, sir. Pacific, can I talk to you, please? Yes, ma'am. And Pacific saw how beautiful he was, and he bowed. Anna did the same. My name is Sukuri. I know you don't know me. My husband died years ago, and I have a beautiful estate here in Kobe. And I saw your story, and something about your story when I saw your face. And then I heard you were coming here. I'm begging you, please stay in my home. I will take care of both you and your lady friend. Please stay in my home. Pacific looked at Anna and said, thank you for your offer. We definitely will. And he didn't realize then that Sukuri would become a part of the nautical family. And she would sail on with them, leaving everything behind. I tell that story because deep down inside, I wish my life had gone like that. I wish I had the guts to sail across the Pacific and face that with no fear and get to the other side and live to tell about it. But the reality is the ocean is not a place to play with. You can't just go out there with no experience. You got to know what you're doing. But I love the ocean. But I also know the ocean is not your friend. It can turn on you. It can be moody. It can be beautiful. It can be your own worst enemy. But deep down inside, I would love to have lived that life. To survive that, to make it, to be invited in with some family, to be able to experience raw adventure and see the hand of God in a way that most of us in our humdrum, go to work, pay the bills, deal with the stresses of life, don't ever get to experience. But we all know that we as Christians, we can look and see God's hand in our lives even still. And I've wanted my life to be an orchestra. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel like it's a broken horn with spit in all the valves. And that's the beauty of God. He's doing something in our life that we don't always understand. He's transforming us. And it doesn't look like it. It's like making a patchwork quilt. When you're on this side of it, it looks nasty, all the threads. But when you flip that thing over, it all is beautiful and makes sense. My life right now is the back side of that quilt. It ain't pretty. I hope you enjoyed that. That was plagiarized from nothing. I made up all of that, wrote it all up in my own mind. God has given me a mind and it works. There's significance as the story goes on with the Maikeru. The lady's husband in Tokyo, he was a real jerk, fooling around with somebody, and that was made known, and she divorced him. And she would eventually invite Pacific and the ladies to her big estate out in the country. And on those large, sprawling grounds with all beautiful trees, you see Mount Fuji in the distance. She had koi ponds. She had a pond with a little island and a gazebo on it. And a grave. And a replica, made exact same materials, in a smaller fashion, on a mantle of the Maikeru inside that gazebo, perfectly preserved. And the grave on that island that Pacific would have the privilege to kneel at was the very man who bought the boat in Sweden and sailed from Sweden, from the Atlantic, down underneath the bottom of Tierra del Fuego, between Antarctica and South America, across the Pacific, and back to Japan. And the boat had disappeared after he died, and nobody knew where it went. It had changed hands many times, but surprisingly maintained perfect preservation. And Pacific would realize as he was going out and about into this world of his and meeting people that there would be things. There was a woman in Hawaii who was Philippine and Hawaiian blood mix. Pacific and the ladies would be invited to her house in Hawaii. A very interesting house. Her and her husband went to Tahiti. And they were not there to welcome. They told one of their servants to welcome them and let them in the home and attend to their needs. And she left a note on the bed in that bedroom in that old Hawaiian house. The master bedroom where Edith and Pacific would stay had beautiful, intricate carvings on exotic wood on the wall. And the lady had written, Pacific and the ladies, welcome to our humble home. May you enjoy your stay here. We wanted to meet you, but we needed to go, and we heard you were coming through Hawaii. We wanted to give you a place to stay. Please take the time to look at the carvings on the wall. I'm not going to tell you, but if you look at those carvings, you're going to discover something that's going to shock you. And I read the note, I saw the carvings, and I glanced at them. But we were busy, and dinner was being made for us. And one night, Edith and I went to bed, and a moonbeam shined in from the window of that beautifully ornate Hawaiian home, surrounded by the Hawaiian jungle. It was a beautiful place. And a moonbeam hit one of the panels just right, as if though a magnifying glass and a spotlight was saying, look. Pacific stirred, got out of the bed so as not to wake Edith. Edith was so in tune with Pacific. She said, hey, are you okay? Edith, come here, look at. The moonbeam shone on the panel. Look at these carvings. Look at how detailed they are. Do you see something in there? She said, look, Pacific, that's us. I said, yes. I said, look over here, that's the Maikeru. Look at this one. It shows big waves on the ocean, and it shows sailors on ships with horrified faces. Look at this. This is us. This is prophecy. Who made these? How old are these? And he could tell they were very old. And he went from section to section. One of them had the Ark of the Covenant. Edith was a smart girl. Pacific, that's the Ark of the Covenant. Yes, it is. How'd you know? Because I seen a picture somewhere. What does that mean? Well, look. It shows Sakuri, shows Anna, Edith, Hermosa, Hisa, you. And look at. Guess what? We're going to find it. That's what that's all about. Who did this? And one night as Edith and I lay down to go to bed, what we didn't know is the husband had some problems. And he had installed cameras in the walls of the bathroom, in that bedroom, that you couldn't see. But he made a mistake in the installation of one of them, and we saw a red light click on. I said, Edith, did you see that? What? I said, look right there, up towards the ceiling. I said, look at that little red dot. What is that? We were both naked and we pulled the covers. I said, we're being watched. We were just starting to go to bed. I went out in the hall. I said, ladies, come here. Follow me. Let me show you something in the bedroom. I said, that camera's aimed right at the bed. I said, go check your rooms. Every square inch. And then we went into the bathroom and I looked. I said, right there by the toilet, one by the shower. I said, what is this? We looked all over that house. And I found a hidden compartment in the back of the pantry. I slid open. There was all this electronic stuff with lights and whirring. I said, ladies, they got cameras all over this house taking pornographic images of all of us. Let's call the police. We called the local police. Then the detective come out. And they had banks of hard drives they could slide in and out. Detective said, let me take one of these and see what's on it. It showed video of the woman's husband doing things with other women in the house. It also showed video of every time somebody sat out on the toilet, every time somebody went in the shower, anytime anybody went to bed. The detective called us the next day and said, that man is going to be arrested. He said, we had some accusations made and we didn't take it seriously because they're very well respected in the community. I said, the missus isn't on it. No, she doesn't even know about this. Do you know where they are? They're in Tahiti. I'm going to put a call to the Tahitian officials. He needs to be arrested over there. This is some serious stuff, and we can't get into it with you, Pacific, but he's got some sexual charges. There's some people in here that are dignitaries in Hawaii. We've got to do something about this. I said, well, could you help us disable it? He said, I already have. He said, I cut that big cable right there. He said, nothing's filming, nothing. We're going to remove the whole thing. And we're going to send you anything that was shot of you guys on a hard drive so you can view it. Because you guys may have to go to court. The man was arrested in Tahiti His wife flew back on an emergency flight and met us before we left. And sobbing said, I am so sorry. I had no idea he was doing this. I talked to the detective in an island here in Pacific. It's not your fault, ma'am. And Akela said, I don't want to live in this house. Pacific, I want you to carefully take all these wooden tiles down, put them on your boat, and if you don't mind, I'm going with you. You're leaving all this? Pacific, I'm rich. I have enough money to last for the rest of my life. You guys are beautiful people. I've heard the news, the media's talking about you. I want to go with you guys and experience what you're experiencing. I'm done. I was shocked. When they called, when the authorities came in and arrested him, I knew nothing. And then the authorities in Tahiti had me call the detective in Hawaii, and he spilled his story, and I just lost it. I had no idea my husband was doing all this stuff. All those panels, one of her relatives, not his. Her father's father had a vision from God, and he carved, every time he had a vision, on this exotic Hawaiian wood, in each panel, a prophecy. I said, but why, Akela, why would your great-grandpa have a vision about us that has nothing to do with you or this island? She smiled and said, are you serious? Because of you, I just found out about my husband. Because of you, I know now that God has a calling for me, and I'm leaving and I'm going with you guys. This wasn't an accident. But as to why he was chosen, I don't know. But I'm telling you, I'm the owner of this house. Remove the panels and keep them. Because you saw the prophecy of the storm. And it's a step by step. And it shows you meeting the Philippines and Anna and her family. And there's a couple of others in there. I don't know what they are. I said, well, this one is the Ark of the Covenant. You mean the one in Israel? Yes. Do you see your face? No. Look. You're in there. Look at the carvings. Ladies, come here. Stand side by side in the order on that. She looks, she goes, oh my gosh. That's Sakurida. Every one of you. And you. You're part of this. All the years I lived here, I never saw that, Pacific. We wouldn't have seen it either. You had left the note. But it's as if though God had to nudge us. Edith and I were laying in bed and a moonbeam shone on the window straight at this one panel right here. And then it hit us. I said, we've got a story here that is just, nobody would believe this. Did somebody think we manufactured all this? And I carefully removed all the panels, packed them up. And we had an area on the Maikeru. The boat had a lot of storage. Maikeru knew exactly what he's doing when he ordered it to specs. He didn't just order it for himself, he ordered it for Pacific. Because God had several purposes for that boat. We would end up sailing from Casiguran, across the Pacific, through the Panama Canal, through the Caribbean, across the Atlantic, through the Straits of Gibraltar, through the Mediterranean, all the way to Tel Aviv. We would meet two women whose father was a devout archaeologist and a Christian man, Jewish, he and his wife, and he had found antiquities that were worth a lot of money. And he firmly believed that the Ark of the Covenant existed, though he didn't know where it was. And his daughters took to us right away. They were adults as well. And while we were there, Anna, by the way, throughout the course of this story, Anna continues to have other dreams. She would wake me in the night, troubled, and tell me. And I knew when Anna had a dream, it was time to pay attention because something big was about to go down. And God had shown her that something very bad was going to happen to the East Coast of the United States, even though we were nowhere near the U.S. Pacific. There's going to be an earthquake under the ocean. It's going to generate a tsunami so big, as well as a storm at the same time, is going to converge. And you're talking a 100-foot wall of water is going to come into D.C. I said, D.C.? You're joking. That wall of water came in at just the right time when everybody was on Capitol Hill. It came in so hard and so fast that it crushed the dome and overwhelmed the building and killed everybody in it. And in literally seconds, the U.S. was without a government. It hit all the way up to New York. It hit the whole eastern seaboard. And it was bad. It tore out everything from Myrtle Beach, Florida, all the way up, Boston. Catastrophic damage and death toll. And I had made a call to the U.S. and I said, be advised, Anna has had a dream. We were in Kobe. She had a dream on the Maikeru while we were out at sea, heading towards Japan, involving China. And it was dire. And there were things that would happen and stuff that would happen. And the U.S. laughed at Anna's, said, so you got some discontent guy that left the United States with some woman that's having dreams that the East Coast of the U.S. can be destroyed. Why should we listen to this? And somebody stood up in Washington and said, have you been paying attention to the story of what this man went through? That this woman had a dream 2 months before he came, that it was shared with the mayor 2 months before he came about this man with the looks he has and the boat and was going to survive this. And did you hear what happened up in Kobe? Did you hear what happened up in China proper? Did you hear what happened to the ships that surrounded Taiwan? And Pacific gave them a warning. And the Xi Jinping laughed and said, who is this Anna and Pacific that we should listen to them? And I had said, get your ships out of there or they will all go to a watery death. And you and your government is going to come to an end. And they laughed. And meteorite fragments came down. But just before that, there was one Chinese captain of a warship, and he got the message. And he called all his crew and said, I have been your captain and I have served China faithfully. But I have come into contact with God, and my life has been changed. And I can no longer support the CCP. And I'm letting you know that I've heard enough about this young lady and this man that survived that monstrous storm. I'm not joking around with this. You guys can defect and you can go on to the other ships, but I'm sailing out of here. Are you with me? And every one of the men said, we're going with you, Captain. And he defected and got out of there. A day later, meteorite fragments rained down on the ships. Pieces so big, on fire, hit the decks and just plunged them that fast beneath the water. And Taiwan thought they were about to get it. Oh, this was a fun story, because if I had the say so, if I had that, I'd put an end to all the foolishness in the world, all of it. Taiwan would have peace, no more threats. Islam would be done. Oh yeah. I want to say something to my viewers, something to think about. Has anybody been paying attention to the atrocities taking place in Iran? Have you noticed the silence of the pro-Palestinians and the Democrats that were screaming about Israel? Have you noticed any? Have you noticed their silence about the Islamic Republic killing and terrorizing? There's body bags laying in the streets of Iran. Where's all the protesters in America? Where's all the Ilhan Omars and all the people decrying this horrible thing? There's silence. I'm getting tired of the devil and the evil that exists in this party. Where's Ilhan Omar and AOC's outrage about what Iran, the Islamic government, is doing to citizens? It isn't there. So the next time you think your Democratic Party is good, please remember the silence. These are ordinary Iranians, by the way. People like us that are being snuffed out and killed. I'm going to remind everybody again. You can scoff at the Bible, but Ezekiel 38 and 39 talks about the invasion, future tense, of Gog and Magog. And that's led by Russia. And Iran is with them, and Turkey, and a large conflagration of Islamic nations. And the Bible says, I will turn back but a sixth of thee. I will put hooks in your mouth and bring you against my people. This day is coming. Pay attention to what Iran's doing. Pay attention to Putin. Pay attention to Turkey. Pay attention to the silence of the Muslim Democrat, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and the other Democrats that were very, very, very pro-Palestinian. They're not saying a word. Nobody's saying we need to stop Iran. It was get behind the Ukraine. Not a word about the terrible, and just the, what do you call this? Not infanticide, genocide that's being inflicted by the Iranian government. We need to pray for those people. We need to pray that they get the gospel. We need to pray that God move his hand against these tyrants, even in Iran. I love it when people attack me. And there's many things you can attack about me. I'm a flawed human being. I got cracks. But God has given me a brain, and he's given me conviction, and he's given me courage, and he's given me grace, and he saved me, and my mind works, and I'm challenging everybody that's watching me, pay attention to the sound of silence by the Democrats. We're so busy talking on my channel. There's a horror movie playing out in Iran. It's not right. It's not right. I want to close with a story. Wheatridge Rec Center many years ago in Colorado. I was a flirt. I still am. Saw this cute woman. She was walking the lazy river, and I joined up alongside her, and we started talking. A few years older than me. Very attractive. I knew she was exotic, but I didn't know where she was from. We started talking. Michael, I'm from Iran. I said, really? Yes, I came from there many years ago. I'm a U.S. citizen. I don't know, Michael, what your political beliefs are, but I hope you value the Constitution and the freedom you have. And I looked at her and I smiled and I said, yes, I do, ma'am. That's good. I don't understand what's happening in your country. I wanted to come here. You know, I cannot be out in public without the burqa. She said there's so many things as a woman she's not allowed to do. I can't wear shorts in public. I can't wear a skimpy top or a sleeveless shirt. Can't vote, can't do this. She said, I love America. And Michael, you have a party in this country that doesn't understand the tyranny that goes on in Iran, and they're trying to inflict the same thing. She said these Democrats in this country are evil. Michael, I'm a Christian. I reject Islam. I'm Iranian, but I do not submit to their government. And I hope you will do whatever you can to fight for the good thing you have. I said, lady, you just made my day. That was out of the mouth, people, of an Iranian woman. These crazy people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are demonic evil. Demonic evil. You got an Iranian woman who left that country and values conservative people, our Constitution, our freedom. I didn't make that up. I don't need to. It happened. I met a beautiful woman from Mexico in that same lazy river. She started talking to me. She's a child of God. She has a husband. She spoke English beautifully. She lived in Mexico City. She'd moved to the U.S. And she said to me, Michael, how come these people are so against Trump? You know, Mexico, crazy. I'm proud to be Mexican, but I love this country. I'm a citizen now, and I love this country. These Democrats, what is wrong with them? I looked at her and said, you're from Mexico, and you're telling the truth. I know I'm telling the truth. What is wrong with these people? Michael has heard it out of the mouths of foreigners about how kooky the left is. So, of course, I incorporated my story of Anna having a dream of a tsunami wiping out the Democratic Party in Capitol Hill once and for all. And after it happened, I stood up on the deck of Maikeru and I said to the ladies, I said, now America can have a real government finally and get rid of all these clowns. That's awesome. They're gone. The Democratic Party was all in session and they're gone. That's awesome. Not by man, not by evil, but by God's mighty hand. And he's going to do it someday. Not a tsunami, but, you know, it seems like, didn't Billy Joel have a song, Why Do the Good Die Young? Why do the evil live long years? You know, the Bible in the Old Testament taught, if you honor your mother and father, you do this, you'll live long in the land. Well, it seems like today the wicked get the long life, the health, everything goes. Man, you see it at work. The bad guys get all the breaks, and they still have a job. And those of us that work hard, keep our nose clean, we're pick that, pick that, pick that, pick that. I was very encouraged today. I had shared some things with my supervisor Friday. I got a text message from him today saying, I just want you to know I value you. You keep on keeping on. You're going in the right direction and things will work for you there. I just want you to know you're a good worker. Wow. My supervisor on his day off took the time to send me that. So all you little trolls out there that say, oh, well, you got fired from transportation. I got fired from a liberal institution of morons. Que sera, sera. And I believe in education. But I believe a child could get more of an education listening to my videos than they will ever get in a liberal school system. I really believe that. And you can call me delusional, but look at what they're teaching these kids. It's messed up. I need to cook my dinner. I thank you for listening. I thank you for the likes. I hope you enjoyed the story of the Maikeru. It was fun making it. It's got some rather colorful stories in the midst of it. Some wild stuff. Some adventures. Sukuri at 60 years old learns to wield a samurai. She'd been good at it. And literally we're taking on villains and bad guys. And with one swift fell stroke of that samurai, somebody's head is laying in the hallway. That woman is a warrior. People think I'm against women. No, I'm not. I'd like to see women warriors for God and not against men and for leftist politics. That's all. That's all. And I wish I could live that life. I wish I could move to Casiguran and build this beautiful, thick, hardwood beam house that looks nothing like America. An exotic, not a mansion, but an exotic, beautiful house that's off the grid. A well, some solar panels not on the roof, but over here where it gets that Philippine sun and you got constant electric. Oh yeah. And a radio that I could transmit around the world. I could call a ship. I could call a world leader. Yeah. The story's fun because it was one of hope and about the mighty hand of God using a loser like me. And that even though I'm not out in that story, I pray God is using me to affect you, whoever you are or you is out there. I've always loved radio. I was fascinated with the radio, tuning the old radio. I love communications and transportation. I love ships and buses and trucks. And I love communications and transportation to this day. Now I'm majoring more on communications and less on transportation. I wish that God, my dream would be able to go to some places and speak over there. But who knows? How much time do we have left? How much time till the rapture? How much time before God shuts it all down and pulls the church age out and starts the time of Jacob's trouble? I want to say something to you people out there. Those of you that are against Israel, I'm going to give you a solemn warning. Be very careful. The stance you take is not the place you should be. I don't think Israel's perfect. I don't think everything Jewish people do is spot on. That's not what Michael's talking about. What Michael's talking about is that book called the Bible said God's not done with those people. The Bible says we're supposed to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The Bible says I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. And that still stands today. And you got nations that are secretly scheming and they want to drown them into the depths of the sea. Iran is a terrible tyrant nation. But always remember, behind all that government, there's Iranian people like you and me. They have hopes and fears and dreams, and they don't have any choice or say. It's those people. I wish I could transmit to every Iranian and say, get on your knees and ask God to be your savior, because your government is corrupt. And this is what Islam does. Islam doesn't breathe life into people. It breathes death and destruction and mayhem. And I'm not going to be religiously tolerant of false religion. I ain't going to bust up your temples and vandalize or harass, but I'm going to speak the truth. And if you don't like it, too bad. There is only one Lord and one Savior, Jesus Christ. Not Allah, not anybody else. Islam is a wicked, evil, satanically induced religious system. It comes to steal, destroy, and it prowls around like a roaring lion seeking who it may devour, just like Satan. Anybody who thinks Islam is a good and peaceful religion is deluded, brainwashed, and spiritually undiscerning. I don't support Islam. I want nothing to do with it. I would not want to be in Iran. I'd be in grave danger if I was over there. Anybody from America that's a Christian, that is not a good place to go visit on your bucket list. But we need to pray for those Iranian people, because it's terrible what's happening. Thank you for listening. And God bless. Be safe.